I'm Scott L. Miller. This is my life living in Leon, Nicaragua, and welcome to the live stream. We're doing a Tuesday for January 6th live stream here. We're doing some more catch up because I'm home and able to do it. Really just taking advantage of the fact that we can do this, and I think the live streams are fun, and getting to some older questions is pretty valuable, really. And I'm sorry to the people who are waiting months and months and months for many of these questions, but at least we are getting to them sooner or later. So hey, just great to have everybody here on a Tuesday night. So yeah, I was just posting, finally getting to this for somebody. Brian Watson, what is this? Yes, Brian, I do the live streams. They're fun. This is like the new thing. We're live streaming all the time now. Actually, I'm going to get to some other stuff soon, but I have some opportunity right now to do some live streams, and it helps with just catching up on things. So it's good to do them while I can. Because obviously there's a lot of times that I can't. Reminder to our audience that we do a long form live stream on Thursdays. So if you don't have to plan for these impromptu ones, but on Thursdays you need to plan. Have a pizza ready, have some beer ready, have the couch ready, have your phone charged up, a TV ready to go. Watch it on both things. Tell people to join you on it. Let's see how many people we can get on the Thursday live streams. And of course, get in those show notes. Give us a thumbs up right now. That's a thing you can do. But get in the show notes. And of course, you can send in a video of yourself, which is fantastic. But for Lydia Vader 9706 from 5 months ago, posted on the San Juan del Sur for Digital Nomads video, she asked, could you do a video, please, on these beach properties that rank higher for digital nomads? I'd be very interested in your thoughts on this. So I apologize that we have taken so long to dig into this question. And I'm actually going to bring up a map. I forget that we can do this on the impromptus. We do this all the time on the long form, but we don't on these others. So why not have a map and do this thing? Let's do it. Let me see if I can get this all ready. It takes a little bit of prep, but will not take long. And there we go. Google Maps. I can make this a little bit bigger. Should do. And here we go. All right, perfect. We got a map. This is Nicaragua. Obviously, this large country in the middle of the map, that is Nicaragua. When we're talking about digital nomads, we're talking about the West Coast here on the Pacific, not the larger Atlantic coast. Why is this? People want to know. Because the Atlantic coast is super remote. You've got only a few actual centers of population, one being Bluefields right here, and one being Puerto Cabezas. That is not its real name. Its real name is Bilwi, but that is the two population centers that you can really go to. You do have the Corn Islands out here. These are Nicaraguan, very remote, very small. You do have Pearl Lagoon. There's a little bit out there, right? But you're looking at small, very poor communities, very remote, not good places for digital nomads. We don't normally really consider that. And of course, there's a lot of country that's good for digital nomads, but this question is about the beaches, so we're talking about the Pacific coast. Let's zoom in. The popular place that everybody's going to think of first is here, San Juan del Sur, in this little bay, the only real bay like it in the country. This is our most popular tourist destination, so of course, people who want to do digital nomad tend to gravitate here, which is, as the video 5 months ago said, the worst place you could possibly go in the country. This is an isolated tourist area, so it doesn't have the infrastructure. It doesn't get the level of investment that other areas are going to get. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the country to put resources into San Juan del Sur. So while it's fine, you can work from there. We're not saying it's not going to work. It gets slower internet. The internet costs more, and you're not at the top of the list for getting things repaired or whatever. It's a tourist spot, right? They expect you to be able to live without internet for a little bit. They expect you to have a slower pace, enjoy the beach, go to the bar, go dancing or something like that. That's kind of how it's expected. Now, most of this, I think, is going to be very similar. You're going to find Popoyo up here. This is the other really large beach in the region. Nothing compared to San Juan del Sur for the number of people, but you will probably find a little bit improved infrastructure there, but you're still down here in Rivas. So Rivas is really the tourist zone as we think of it. So this whole departamento, which is much like a state down here, is going to be not the best. Now, if you're in the city, if you're in Rivas itself, you're in San Jorge, we expect you to be able to work great, but those are not beaches, right? The beach zone right here along this coast, this is the tourist beach, the expat beach. So just, it's definitely functional, but it is not the same. When we're talking about the real places that Nicaraguans go, the places that the government is concerned about keeping working really well. We're looking at roughly a little bit more than fits on the screen there. Let's see if we can scroll it up right about here. With Machapa at the north, now this is pretty remote. I would not use that because it's just too remote. And down here, just above the reservation, the preservation in the south. So this is your stretch of populated Nicaraguan Pacific beaches. So let's zoom in a little bit. Down here at the southern edges, Huehuete. This is probably going to be a great place for digital nomads. Caceres. This is a fishing village. While the internet is probably good, we're not going to recommend it for most expats. It's a little bit adventurous. La Boquita. I just did a video here a few days ago. If you're interested in any way, go check out that video. I love La Boquita. I think it's a beautiful beach area. Not very heavily populated, but it's going to work just fine. Got a little empty zone here. All of these are going to have access to food, access to restaurants, access to good fiber internet. You're going to be able to work as a digital nomad very, very easily. And all of them are less expensive than the Rivas beaches. So you're winning in that way as well. Of course, as a digital nomad, we assume you need to work. That's why you're doing it. So going to an expensive place just to waste money doesn't make sense. So this is perfect. Now down here, we've got Pochumil. You also have Pochumil Viejo, but that's tiny. Pochumil, where I first tried to buy a hotel many, many moons ago. That's going to work fine. Masachapa, Montelimar, and this little area right here, going to be great. Now this right here, this is a private enclave zone. Absolutely not for digital nomads. You would be way better at San Juan del Sur. You need to be in Nicaragua, right? If we come to an actual enclave and actual development where they're walled off from the rest of the country and you don't have access to the national resources, no, it's going to, that all of our rules about how good things are in Nicaragua right out the window, right? Your cost is not in line. Your internet isn't necessarily make sense. Your power doesn't necessarily make sense. Your access to resources doesn't necessarily make sense. So don't read into that. We're talking about places that are open to the country where you're not contractually giving up your access to stuff. You got some empty zone here, and then you've got El Tránsito, Hermosa, Valero, Miramar. All of these are going to be perfectly good beaches, especially if you can find a place. El Valero, for sure. Miramar, I like a lot. Puerto Sandino is a port, not a beach. So while it would work, you gotta have good internet, good power, and all that. It's not gonna feel very beachy. But if you just want to be near a beach, it's very, very close without being a problem. Here we have Salinas Grandes and Playa Tesoro in this range here. These will work fine for digital nomads who want to be kind of remote. Their internet and stuff is mostly okay down here. Be aware the people are reporting that they're not getting fiber down there, so they're mostly working from Wi-Fi and other things. So definitely not perfect, right? This is the area that is kind of the exception to the rule. But you notice it, you don't see any roads really coming down here. Yeah, this is you're really intentionally going off grid. Anytime you're going significantly off grid, be aware you may be creating some problems. Now we have the city beaches. So this is a reserve here, right? So there's nothing there. The city of León, second biggest city in the country, has a road coming out, and then it's got Las Bonitas, Ponaloya, and Los Brosiles. These are right here. Brosiles is actually isolated by water, so it is not okay for digital nomads. You're talking about extremely slow, unreliable internet that's being beamed over water. So consider that an island. It isn't technically an island. There's water here, cuts it off. There's this river going off, that is Talica. There's this water here, but there is a little tiny bit of land right here that is not a river, and so it's only almost an island, but not actually. But it functions like one, so it's horse-drawn carriages to get anywhere you're going to go. Well, horse-drawn cart power is normally from generators or solar out there. Nothing runs over from the mainland. So even though it's very close, you are cut off. That's different. But if you're here in Ponaloya, the old beach, or here in Las Bonitas, the new beach, you have excellent fiber. You're connected to the city. You've got access to this road that takes you into the big city of León in a matter of minutes. So you are in great shape there. It's one of the most ideal places for digital nomads. Also good for digital nomads is Corinto, the big port town and recent recipient of a new highway region just outside the this says El Calvario. That is a barrio of Chinandega. Chinandega is another departamento west of León. So this zone right here with Corinto and its immediate access, even though it's on a peninsula, is almost a city. It is the big shipping center, so you're not going to get that beachy feel, but it is an area that would work very well for digital nomads, and it does have this new road that was just put in, so it makes it kind of nice. There are a few places along here you might be able to make work, but it would be tough. And then if we come up here, Aposentillo is a major beach for the region, is what we know as an El Viejo beach, because it is connected to the city of El Viejo, which is still part of Chinandega, but you have to go from El Viejo to the beach. You can't go directly from Chinandega itself. And then you have a little bit of, there could be some stuff in here. You're not totally isolated. You notice the highway kind of goes. So it's this area you could make potentially work. And then you've got Jicalillo up here. Jicalillo, it's very hard to pronounce, is going to be okay. This area is an up-and-coming zone. You should have no problem getting good internet and power and stuff up there. And then you notice the road comes up. We got this difficult area here. You might find maybe something, but this is Machapa, and you are now remote. You are now at the edge of the world. This is where the roads peter out. This is a giant volcano and the edge of a peninsula. This is the little spot where you take the ferry, and the ferry being a lancha, over to El Salvador. And these are the little islands in the Gulf of Fonseca. So those are the beaches of Nicaragua that are major beaches. Those are the places where you're going to be able to function very well as a digital nomad. You want to be closer to the cities in order to get resources. So anything from Huehuete here up to at least Corinto and almost certainly Aposentillo, you're going to be really good. Almost all of this, as long as you don't get into one of those isolated places like Grand Pacifica, you've got easy access to grocery stores, maybe a little bit of a drive, but not bad. You've got fiber internet and good internet options. You've got communities with enough stuff to have, at least a few restaurants to eat at, a few places to stay at, ways for people to visit you, and you can go surfing or do whatever on the beach. So those are some places to consider if you're looking at becoming a digital nomad on the beach here in Nicaragua. They're the places that make the most sense. Don Timoteo, I am here to see Scott ride a horse. I've done a lot of riding a horse in my day. I've done a lot of falling off of horses as well. There must be some backstory there from Brian. Yes, I have been in stampedes. Sometime I will tell the story. Okay, so as long as we have anyone asking questions, we're just plowing through questions and knocking these out. Hopper333 from 5 months ago. And we're going to, again, give a timestamp. We are at 12:35. So we will go add this to the question. Hi, great subject. This is in reference to walking Managua, Nicaragua. How best to visit from quite some time ago. Great subject. Any chance you have a video on your top 10 or 20 walking cities in Latin America? If you don't have such a video, care to relate the list to me? Thanks. Okay, Hopper. No. So I haven't done that much walking in cities in Latin America. I wish I had walked enough to be able to isolate the top 10 away from the other hundreds that I have done. That would be fantastic, obviously. That would also be a lot of work and just an amazing activity to do. I would love to do that. But I'm going to break down a little bit because I am a city walker. I did so much walking of cities in Europe. And I've walked so many in the United States and North America as well. So there's always the mountain cities, right? They're always going to be difficult for walking. I did a lot of walking in Cochabamba. I love it, but would I call it an ultimate city for walking? I don't think so. I did a lot of walking in La Paz. Terrible city for walking, but such a cool city, right? So these things are difficult. Really clear for a major city, Buenos Aires has to be very close to the top of the list. It is enormous and it is flat and it is very safe. It is a very high likelihood that someone will snatch your phone compared to a lot of places, but other than that, very, very safe. And so that makes for the combination of things. It generally makes for the best walking cities. It's also very lively, so if you're walking at night, which I really like to do, it's great for that. So I'm going to say Buenos Aires, almost certainly right up at the top of the list. It's a fantastic city for walking anytime, and you just have so much to walk in. Like, I don't know what's going to compete with Buenos Aires realistically for walking in Latin America. I think you're probably going to find that some places like Lima really come out quite good. I don't think that Nicaragua has great walking cities, and that's sad because I love walking and I love Nicaragua, and putting them together it's not the best place for that. Most of our cities are not so flat. There's some places you can certainly go for walks, right? We're just saying it's not the ideal one. Managua is a terrible city for walking. Granada, you walk so quickly, you're just like, well, that's that. Leon, very odd to walk around and doesn't have anything to see much of the time. It's very difficult to navigate. Messiah, maybe a little bit better. Esteli is probably the best for Nicaragua, because it's high in the mountains, but it's flattish, so it's not so bad for walking. Jinotega, I do like walking that a bit, but very small. Matagalpa, very difficult to walk because it's in the hills, but gorgeous. You get some amazing views there, so I do like walking it. Maybe it's better than it seems. Same thing, like Tegucigalpa, not a conducive city to walking. High crime, dangerous areas, and the mountains make it very difficult. So definitely not good there. I want to go check out San Pedro Sula, but I think the answer is going to be not a great walking city either. I can tell you, like Antigua, perfectly good for walking. Is it fantastic? No, but it's pretty good. But Guatemala City is high up there. Very safe, very walkable, great parks, good weather, decently flat. Which is an amazing thing to say because it's in the mountains, has all kinds of weird terrain, but it's very, very walkable. Obviously, Medellin, a bad city for walking. But there's so much in Latin America. I wish I could answer this question better. I really wish I had like deeper knowledge of, is it Cusco, is it Quito, which of these cities is really good. There's a lot like that I think are very good for walking. Sucre is probably quite good for walking. There's tons of Brazilian cities that I just have no way to have good opinions on. I know Caracas has a lot of elevation changes. Bogota, a lot of elevation changes. But also, they're really big cities with big areas you could walk in. So wish I could answer that one better, and that's why it's been 5 months that I've let this linger as a question. I know a lot of Mexico is difficult for walking. That doesn't mean you don't want to walk it. It just means if you're looking for that stellar walking city, it's difficult. And to give you some reference, some of my favorite cities for walking, I love walking Rome, Madrid, but one of some of my favorite cities are Cadiz, which really throws people. They're like, where? And Sevilla. Those really stood out to me as some amazing walking cities when I lived in Europe. So those are some places to check out if that's what you're looking for. But I would love to take up this challenge and walk tons of major cities across Latin America and evaluate them in that way. I think it would be really good. But it is a difficult thing to get out and evaluate. So I know that didn't answer the question, right? No one ever plans well for food. I spend so much of my life trying to organize everybody's food. Luke posts, totally unrelated nugget of indigenous wisdom. You cannot wake a person who is pretending to be asleep. Okay, so that's as best as I can do for answering that question. All right. Also, from 5 months ago, back to topics about animals. These come up quite a bit. TJ's here. Yo, TJ, how's it going? TJ, should we announce your little project on here? See how many people we can round up for you? Maybe that's, let me know. 5 months ago, do you have a video? And what's our timestamp? Anybody? We are at 18:45. Do you have any video showing how to move over with dogs? I have two. Oh, he has a period. He didn't mean to have it there. I have 2 small dogs. What's the best city to live in? It needs to be more flat than hilly, and I don't do heat very well. I'd like something more of a spring-like, doesn't it? What city would be best in Nicaragua for that? I would also like to have a little land to have small animals like chickens, etc. Okay. So again, this is Mama Italiano 9774, and I apologize if this is 5 months for me to answer. There's no excuse for it. Once things get buried, I'm lost, right? And in my defense, YouTube is so bad at showing me what the things are, and they just disappear. And then I'm like, well, I had a thing to answer, and they're just gone, and then and then it gets buried and it's very hard. Anyway, so how to move over with dogs. I have some videos where we talk about it. People ask on a regular basis. And the answer is basically you get your paperwork from your home country and you either get a flight where you can take them or you drive them down. There's very little to actually say other than, travel safely with your animals. And that's a constantly moving target because which airlines accept them in cabin and how they work, just constantly changing. The one thing that is really important to know is never ship an animal in cargo just in general. But here in Nicaragua, our temperatures are extremely high. We are a hot country. There's no getting away from it. And there is a danger of your animal being taken out and put on the tarmac. Don't put them into that position where that could happen. You could be in a desperate position watching your animal expire on hot tarmac. Simply keep them in the cabin with you. If they cannot be in the cabin with you or flown some other way in a cabin, do not do it, or drive, do something different, but don't bring them in cargo. I cannot warn people enough about that. It's a general rule. It's not good anywhere but here. We know of people firsthand who have had dangerous things happen with their animals. Please do not put your animals through that. Obviously, absolutely, I want you to move down and bring your animals. I did. Private flight is what we ended up doing. I have a larger dog who's here right now and is very thankful that we brought her down and her little brother. And now we have a third dog and like 6 cats. So all about the animals. And I think it's great that people want to bring them down. That's really the only bit of advice. And if you have small dogs, you can probably bring them in a cabin. Sometimes you have to bring 2 people, each take 1 dog. That's just one of those things but it all depends on the airlines, which ones allow, which ones don't. Always changing by the time you come. That may change. This is, I should mention, on the video, bigger isn't always better in expat countries from quite some time ago. I don't do heat very well, right? So, and they want something that's fairly flat, but cooler weather. So that means you got to be in the mountains, but you can't be in a place like Matagalpa where the mountains are affecting the downtown zone. So Esteli is your obvious choice. Jinotega is an acceptable choice. Jinotega isn't so flat as Esteli, but it's a lot flatter than Matagalpa, not hilly to the point where it's like a problem for most people. Sorry, I'm being a little bit itchy today. So definitely start as Esteli as your starting point. You could also look at a Jinotepe, San Marcos, or Diriamba. Those are relatively flat. They're not high like in the mountains, but they are higher than much of the country, and they're not going to give you spring-like, but they're going to give you shoulder of summer-like. So definitely not Esteli cool, not Jinotega cool, but not Leon warm or even Managua warm. Managua being much noticeably cooler than Leon. So not a ton of advice on this one, and sorry that it took me 5 months to answer, but hopefully that will help there. The Old Gringo 7482 on the video, home for $15,000 in Nicaragua. Why no photos of a house in this level? No photos. I'm not sure why he's saying. Say I've filmed several houses in this price point. The pink house video being an example. Not much to say on there, so sorry that it took me forever to answer. That one is 6 months ago, and that's all there is to say, I guess. All right, let me scroll back to make sure that we're getting to ones we need. Okay, 4 months ago, I don't know where this one was hiding. Oh, this is Guatemala City Zone 10, walking, tour, and driving. Guillermo says, Hola, puedes pedir el Uber a la salida del aeropuerto. Ahora no hay necesidad de caminar fuera a menos que quieres hacerlo. I have to say, I'm just answering this one right. It's because I had no service and couldn't use the Uber app. So that it is available was not a factor. It still requires the phone to be able to download and make the app work. It had cleared itself from my phone, so I wasn't able to use it for over an hour and a half because that's how long it takes to download. People always miss the details. Oh, I missed this one from 6 months ago. Also, the old gringo. Oh, weird. At what's our timestamp now? 25:10. On the video, Nicaragua has changed how I see poverty. The question is, at the current level, which of course has changed in the last 6 months, how much income would a family of four need to be considered middle class by Nicaragua standards, or a couple? So the number that he's working from, or asking about in reference to, is it's roughly $800 for a family of one, for a single person, to cross into the middle class range. So what would it take for two? So obviously a bit less, right? If you had $1,600 for two people, you'd be very comfortable middle class, right? Because you're presumably living together. That's kind of where that number would come from. So if you're doing that, right, much of the people who are in that range of 800, about 300 of that is going to be going to rent. So if you had a second person making 500 to 600, so your total combined as a couple is 1,300 to 1,500, that would be 1,300 to 1,400. That would be probably middle class for two people, right? Certainly you need a bit more, and probably a little bit less than that. You might be able to pull it off for, say, 12, because if your housing is shared, and you're not going to get two cars, that's not a thing. You may not get any car, but you're definitely not going to get two. You are cooking together and going out to eat together and sharing taxis and things like that. There's a lot of cost savings throughout the month. You only have one electrical bill, only have one internet bill. There's a lot of things you share, right? And when one of you is like, I'm whipping up some eggs, do you want some eggs, right? It's very low cost, maybe $1, $2 to have those like snack items. When you're like doing like a big meal, I'm going to have a steak, I'm going to make you a steak, that the price kind of doubles. There's not really a cost savings to eating together. But when you're whipping up some gallo pinto and some eggs, or frying up some cheese, then there is. And like even just the fuel oil that you're using, the fuel gas, is split. So that's probably reasonable. What about a family of four? Now, this would be two adults and two kids. It's going to be higher for sure, but not dramatically. You may be looking at more like $1,700 to $1,800. Probably is going to pull that off. Now, someone may pop in and be like, really needs to be closer to 2,000. Maybe that's true, but I would say 2,000. You're safely going to have a family of four at middle class, because again, those extra kids, they're definitely not creating much more housing cost, right? You probably have enough housing for them at the same price envelope. They're barely going to use more electricity. They're going to eat more food for sure, so that goes up. They don't need another car. They are not creating more internet. They're not needing more TVs and things like that. So most of the things are going to be shared still. And so a little bit more for sure, especially enough to obviously cover their food, but that's probably and clothing, right? That's going to be the big expenses. Now the thing that does hit you is most middle class families tighten their belts and put money into school. So that's going to hit you, that there are a lot of school costs, because middle class living with kids, you expect those kids to be going to school. So that's going to push you up towards that 2,000 number, but you're not expecting them to go to the absolute top school if you're entry level middle class, right? If you're just skirting into the middle class, then you're going to be going to good schools, good private schools, almost universally. But that's a big thing here, is that kind of pride in doing private school and being able to do that for your kids. And I know people who are not squeaking into the middle class, who do have kids and are paying for them to go to private school. That's very normal. So that's something that tends to happen pre-middle class, if you will. Okay, from 6 months ago. I don't know if this is one that needs a... I'm going to refresh my page here just because sometimes it gets really hard to keep it tracking. Okay, there we go. Dean Miller, 7968, from 6 months ago. Says, hey, Scott, thanks for all your content. It has been invaluable in my decision about making my move to Nicaragua. And so sorry this is 6 months late. I don't, however, have a question and hope you can help me, or someone in the community can help me. I think he means he does have a question. I'm bringing my dog, and he's 25 pounds, which is too big for the cabin, so he'll have to tough it out in the cargo, which he will be fine. He's a great traveler, and he will be okay with 2.5 hours from Miami. However, I need a broker in Managua to get him through customs, hoping someone can help me with the name of someone who is a broker. So that's not needed. And so sorry that this was so long before an actual response. We are at 30 minutes. You do not have, I've never heard of a broker for bringing an animal in here, but none are needed or used. That's not a thing that's done here. I'm not saying that there is no broker and that it is impossible to get one, but I know of a lot of people who have brought in pets, and I've never heard of someone using one. And certainly it's not needed, right? It's just you get off the plane, there's just a process, it takes some time. And you go through. That's why you want to have your animal with you, because it could be hot and it could be a while, and they could be left on the tarmac during that time. A broker probably can't change that, so don't let that change your decision processes during that. So just answering a little bit more for him to let him know we're here. But yeah, no broker needed. And I think you're not going to find anyone who has one, because I know everyone with pets talks to me just naturally because everybody knows my dogs. And I've never heard of someone using one. So I think you're good. And he asked it again on a different video. Okay, well, that knocked out a number of videos. Also, 6 months ago, my memories from Nicaragua are good. Managua is a very interesting place. Okay, cool. Responding to toxic videos about Nicaragua long ago. What money to bring on your Nicaragua vacation 2025? I have no idea if this is something to answer on the question. Some of these, I'm surprised, just like you, because I have not seen these. We're so old. This is still 6 months ago. Simon B143. Hi, Scott. I'm enjoying your channel. I'm English, so I work in British pounds sterling. Money there sounds quite similar to Cambodia, where the local currency is the real, but U.S. is accepted everywhere. If, for example, I pay with something with a $50 bill, will they give me change in Cordoba? How difficult is it to open a bank account there? For me, it would be the preferred option and transfer money into that using the Wise app or similar. Thanks. Okay, so we're at about 31 and a half minutes. It's good that we're doing these live streams because there's so many of these that we need to catch up on. Okay, so yeah, if you're using U.S. currency here, typically you're going to get change in Cordoba, but not always. You could get change in dollars. You may get change in Cordoba. A lot of places don't have dollars, but a lot of places are happy to give you change in dollars because they'll round in their favor. No one has something smaller than a $1 bill. A lot of people don't have smaller than a 5. Very few people have bigger than a 20. We don't have change here, right? Quarters, dimes, and that kind of stuff. I've never seen any. Like, it could exist, but you've never seen any. You really want to avoid doing things in dollars where you need change. It won't work out great for you, but generally you're just going to get Cordoba as change, and that's fine, right? But we do operate in dollars, so if you're paying for larger things, then you'll be all set. This is how difficult it is to open a bank account there. Decently pain in the butt, not like legally hard, just it's hard for Nicaraguans to open a bank account. It's just kind of hard. It's very lengthy. They really don't want you to open a bank account. They being the banks, the government doesn't care, as far as I know. It's weird that it's so hard. I'm not really sure what their business plan is that says, hey, don't have customers. But that is their business plan, right? And in the U.S., sometimes you're required to do consumer banking for commercial banking purposes, and so they don't like having consumer banking customers, and they're looking for ways to avoid it. Maybe that's the case here too. I don't know, but it is a pain, but it's completely doable. There are some banks who are available to tourists, and more available if you have your cedula, like me, if you're a permanent resident, and so certainly it is an option to get a bank and use them in that way. But very few people actually do that. It's generally what people don't do, but you can. And we have heard some problems with Wise. I don't use Wise. Some people have recommended it. I want to check it out. We've also heard some horror stories that Wise may be one of the banks that cuts you off if they discover you're in Nicaragua. So just be aware that that could be the case. Don't completely depend on it. But remember, you can just go to the ATM with a debit card and take out money. Which may not be the most cost-effective thing for, depending on the bank you have back home or whatever, but you can in a pinch, right? So you have some flexibility, and there's a reason why most of us do not have bank accounts. That's relatively rare. I would say maybe 1 out of 5 expats who's not permanent would do that. Those of us who are investors and have companies, often the companies will have bank accounts for obvious reasons, but as individuals, it's decently rare. Not unheard of by any stretch, but decently rare. And those that do it are often like, wow, that's a pain. But it is nice having a bank account for those who do. I do not. But you could do those things. That mechanism will work, and you can give that a try if you feel that that's what makes sense for you. Okay, WJ Stout 1, also 6 months ago, on the video. Come to Nicaragua for your summer 2025 travel. Skip the USA. I've been to Nicaragua 7 times, and I really enjoy my time there. I agree with you about the good that presents there. I've never had a bad experience. But you are overstating the situation that exists in the United States. As long as someone is traveling with the proper documentation, they will be welcomed. No, we know that's not the case, right? Since then, he says that is the situation. America is a wonderful place and is getting better every day. I'm just going to say this didn't age well. Clearly traveling or living or even being a permanent legal resident has proven that having the right papers does little to keep you safe, and no one can now say that welcomed can have applied. So time has borne out in very dramatic fashion that I was not overstating, but quite dramatically understating how bad it was and becoming. There we go. It is handy going back to these comments and people being like, it's great, it's not like that. What? Obviously, you made that up. Oh, another one. America is not in decline, quite the opposite. I'm thinking of moving to USA. The economy is booming. Once again, time has proven that you were delusional. The collapsed economy, rampant problems, and disasters are exactly as common sense and clear observation led us to believe. But thanks for considering adding your income and resources to the propping up of the collapse. The Americans will be happy to consume your resources. What a nice gesture. I like when someone's like, I'm considering moving there. The economy is booming. and then says he doesn't live there. Well, if you're not an American and you're just getting propaganda from the US, why do you think it's booming? How dumb is that? Like, if you live there and you're like, everything seems to be booming, okay. But if you're making a point that you aren't there and don't know, what? Linda says, please bring the old bump back. I'm going to say, oh, sorry. I do a new one each year now. Okay, we got a lot of, or not, maybe not a lot, but Marvin Montenegro says, have you considered moving to San Juan del Sur? Oh, hell no. No. I considered it 6-7 years ago when we hadn't spent as much time and I was visiting. I put in a little bit of time in San Juan del Sur and was like, hey, this could be pretty nice. This could be good. And then spent more time there. And absolutely not. No, there's no place in the country I would move less than San Juan del Sur. I've certainly been there. I can't honestly fathom why anyone considers moving there. Like, I get the highlights of the place. It's amazing for me. And I know people who do live there and do like it, right? So I'm not saying you're crazy for wanting to go there. I'm saying it amazes me that the people I know that choose it put up with the things that it comes with to get the benefits of it, right? Like it's just not a place that calls to me in the least. I don't like the crime. I don't like the culture. I don't like the constant passing through of the backpackers. Like, there's nothing against backpackers. I just don't want to live in the middle of the backpacker path, right? I don't want that to be who's at the restaurants every day. I don't want every day to be, oh, hey, so where are you from? Right. Oh, you live here? Well, it's so cool. Like, that's neat once a month. But when it's every day at every restaurant, at every meal, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, it wears on you pretty quickly. And all the expats who live there, there's so many of them, it's a completely different culture. The expats that are there are completely different expats than in the rest of the country. The infrastructure just isn't up to par with the rest of the country for obvious reasons, right? It's not just, it's a tourist spot. Why would it have the infrastructure? It doesn't need it. It doesn't have the things that draw us to Nicaragua, and it has the things that kept us from going to other countries, right? So San Juan del Sur is like a small, semi-Nicaraguan copy of the places we specifically came to Nicaragua because they weren't the places we wanted to go, right? A lot of people who move to Nicaragua and choose San Juan del Sur tend to fall into one of two major categories. And again, like I said, I know people who live there, who have put in the time, who know the country, and still choose it, right? So they do exist. But the big groups going to San Juan del Sur are either the people who do zero research. They have never watched my channel. They have never watched anything. They looked at a travel brochure. Someone tried to sell them some expensive thing. And they go, I'm not doing any research. I am just heading to this place I don't know anything about. And I'm going to allow salespeople to push me. And so they end up just lost, right? Or you end up with the people who wanted to go somewhere else, couldn't for some reason. They didn't get allowed in. They didn't have the money for somewhere else. And they think that San Juan del Sur is the closest they're going to be able to be allowed into or afford towards what they're looking for. Neither of those groups are bad people, but neither of them are groups that I, as a person who loves Nicaragua and wants to be in Nicaraguan culture and wants to live in Latin America and wants to be a part of the place and is not looking to be surrounded by an enclave and am not looking to be surrounded by other expats per se, wants to have as the people around me, right? That is the exact people we were trying to leave from a cultural perspective. Or more importantly, we moved to Nicaragua because we want to be with Nicaraguans. I like Nicaragua. A lot of people, and there's, again, nothing wrong with this, move to Nicaragua or move to any country because they're seeking the weather, the beach, the cost of living, and all those things are great, right? The safety. Like, Nicaragua just has all these check boxes to offer. And that's fantastic. And that may be what draws you here initially. Probably what draws anyone here initially. Because if you don't have those things, why did you even research it? But the thing that brings us here, the thing that makes this our number one pick, the thing that made me stop moving around Europe and stop moving around Latin America and settle down after many, many years of moving was I like Nicaragua. I like the language. I like the people. I like the culture. I like the vibe. I like living in Nicaragua. I wish Nicaragua was at elevation like Guatemala, right? I'm not in Nicaragua because the weather works for me. I'm in Nicaragua because the weather's not so bad as to keep me out, right? That's different. I don't actually like the beach very much, but my wife does, so we live near the beach. But I don't want to live near a beach. I don't mind the beach, but I want to live in the mountains. Not these mountains, just any mountains. I just like mountain living. I like the dynamicism that comes with it. I like the cooler weather that comes with it. I like the just interesting way that things look. I don't particularly like the food scene here. Not that the food is bad, but it doesn't have the variety, and it's not vegetarian friendly in the way that I would hope being a vegetarian, right? Pescatarian. And so there's a lot of these like little things, and you're like, whoa, that's a lot of. I mean, those aren't terrible, but those. Why did you move there? That's the point, because I love Nicaragua. I like this as a place, and so when you're looking at San Juan del Sur, it's realistically nothing like this place. And so when I go there, it's not that I dislike San Juan del Sur. I know it comes across that way. I find it frustrating. And there's things about it I really like. I love the view of the bay. I like how calm the water is there. I like that there's a little bit higher density of restaurants. I like that the town has more people like near the beach, like where we are. We're very spread out on the beach. I don't like that particularly. Like San Juan del Sur is nicer. You're able to have some businesses just off the beach but nearby. It gives you a lot of advantages, right? I like that stuff. I love the hills nearby, so you can be kind of in the hill and see the water. That's fantastic, right? So there's things I really like about it, but it doesn't offer me the Nicaraguan experience, so it doesn't come across to me as a point of interest, right? So while I can come up with all these great things, what I can't come up with is, why would I ever even consider it? It doesn't meet my needs. If I was going to be in San Juan del Sur, there are other countries that meet my needs better if I'm giving up the things that makes it Nicaragua to me: the culture, the people, the lifestyle, the vibe, and all that. At that point, I might as well be in Costa Rica. I might as well be in Guatemala. I might as well be in Peru, all places that I could go. Hey, it's okay, you can come in. I'm doing my live stream. My daughter came in and she left. I have all these places that I could go. And so importantly, for, like I said, a lot of people who come to Nicaragua come here, and there's again, nothing wrong with this. They come here because they are in retirement, they're in a fixed income, and they're in a situation where they... I'm getting the results from the baseball game right now. Where if I'm lacking the Nicaraguanness of Nicaragua, I could go to any one of those countries and get weather that I like better, way better selection of food, easier flights, and so forth. So for me, because I can afford those countries, I'm not saying I can afford them as well as Nicaragua. I do. I'm not a billionaire. I do appreciate that Nicaragua is more cost effective. That certainly hits my radar, but it is not a decision factor for us. And so I wouldn't go to San Juan del Sur because for me, it isn't this is the least like Nicaragua I could get while still being affordable Nicaragua, right? I want Nicaragua. I would pay extra to be in Nicaragua versus the San Juan del Sur experience, right? So in reality, San Juan del Sur is the most expensive part of Nicaragua. But if it was reversed and it was the super cheap place, I still wouldn't pick it because money is not the driving factor. Always, until you're just ridiculously rich, a driving factor. And I'm not even in the not ridiculously rich. I'm not even in the seriously, boring rich. I'm in the pretty decent have an income because I'm not retired as an expat. Not rich, but not poor, right? But there's no place in Latin America that I can't go. Pick the most expensive parts of Latin America, right? Mexico City and Guatemala City, Belize City, Panama City. Did I say Mexico City, Buenos Aires, right? Those cities, like, what do they all have in common? They all have offices for my company, right? I could go to any one of them, work out of our offices. Yeah, I don't even need to work out of them. I can work from home. But all of them have offices for the company. All of them, we know very, very, very well what the envelopes for lifestyle is. For income, they are all within our easy reach financially. And those are the cities, right? I could live outside the cities and live cheaper, right? Rural Argentina, right, costs less than Buenos Aires, obviously. They're all within reach. And I like all those places. None of those are places that if you said, well, we're taking everything else away, this is the place you have to live, none of them would be like, no, not that place. They're all nice places, right? For at least the extent that I've spent time in them. So with a lot of options, I'm just always amazed that people choose San Juan del Sur, but the number of people who choose it is a handful, right? I know like 2. Everyone else who's there when I speak to them is always like, wait, there's other stuff? I didn't even know there were other options. Or, well, I was afraid to go out. Or I just ended up here and I don't go anywhere. Or I spent all my money and now I'm trapped, or just whatever, right? There's a lot of that kind of stuff. But what I almost never get is someone who says, oh no, I know all these places, I have all this experience, I know what I'm doing, I've evaluated it, and I still picked San Juan del Sur. And notably, my co-moderator on the Expat group actually is one of those people, and he knows that I'm continuously amazed that he made and continues to make that decision. But importantly, every person I know who did make that decision tends to be on the fence. And they're like, I'm evaluating leaving because of all the reasons I mentioned. But I don't know a single person who lives outside of San Juan del Sur who has experience in Nicaragua who ever considers moving to it. Again, it could happen, but I've never met one of those people. Everyone I know, if they're willing to go, and not everyone I know is even willing to visit, most say it's a 2 or 3 day thing. It can be fun, and I do like it every 1 to 2 years to go for a couple days. And then I've had enough of it, and I'm really glad to go. And the quick story is, I went there in 2021 when our deal in Pochemil fell through, and we suddenly had to evaluate other locations. We had evaluated it from a distance quite heavily, and in 2019 and 2020, during COVID, we couldn't get here. We were trying to be here. In 2021, we bought a place in Pochemil. It fell through. We ended up trying to evaluate every beach town we could. Started there, and my business partner, who normally pops in while I'm doing a live stream but hasn't today, we went in there, and I think he gave it 3 hours. We had booked 3 days. We had paid for a hotel. We were all set to, we had done tons of research. We were ready to show him all kinds of things, going to take him all over because it was his first time in San Juan del Sur. I had lived in the country before. I had put in a lot of time, tons of research, put in a bunch of time in San Juan del Sur. And then when I took him to San Juan del Sur, and he's like, all right, this is going to be great. I don't know if it's going to be our first choice, but this is going to be a really good option. The prices we got were so much lower than anyone else got because we knew what we were doing. We were prepared to easily pay cash, move into San Juan del Sur, own a giant place on the beach. We had options. We had lots of stuff to look at. We went to dinner at Pelican Surf, and by the time dinner was done and the people left, he looked at me and said, I don't want to spend another night in this town. I don't ever want to come here again. I don't ever want to interact with the people that are here. Right? That was his. One night of expats coming through and just the drama, the culture, he's like, this is not what I came to Nicaragua for, right? No individual person was bad. No individual interaction was bad. But when he realized that living in San Juan del Sur meant being part of this never-ending expat culture, it was like, let's get out of here. And we paid for the hotel we had and left anyway and just didn't use the rooms. That's how much we wanted to get out of San Juan del Sur. I didn't hate it as much as he does, right? He won't go there at all. He won't visit it. I will for a few days, but normally only when I'm showing someone around. I never voluntarily go on my own. There's no draw at all for me. Right. And as an investor, it's the worst investment opportunity, I think, in the country. Pretty much. I mean, you could find something worse, but of major places that people know the names of, it's the worst place to invest in the country. In a country where it's really hard to invest well already. So that's saying something, right? So it doesn't have a business advantage for us either. I'm going to jump back and forth between old stuff and new stuff. Brent, who is probably watching the live stream and doesn't need me to respond to him with a time. Given the fact that asking prices for property for sale are basically meaningless, how meaningful are listed prices for rentals? Okay, actually, that is a decent question. I will give a time on that. So that is 53.50. So it's well known that if you have a real estate listing here, the numbers are utterly gibberish and meaningless. So that just is what it is. But For rentals, they do tend to be a lot more connected to reality because you can't have that like 3 times the cost number. It just doesn't play out for whatever reason. I'm sure if we sat down and think about it, it's not too illogical. So generally, when you see listed prices for rentals, you're looking at a pretty normal markup, right? So if a place would really go for 200, they're going to list it at 253 or 350 generally, and you can talk them down. Everyone will list it at a different price, and they'll see who goes for it, right? So that can be difficult, right? That can be confusing, and you're kind of always used to it. So yeah, it's going to be marked up, but it's generally tied to reality in some way. So if a place is 150, it's never going to go above 3, right? It might go to double, but generally not. If a place is worth 800, they might list it for up to 1200, but they're not going to go above that. So as you get higher, the amount they'll go over gets smaller. They'll always be willing to go maybe 50% over, and at the small end, they might be willing to go 100% over. And sometimes they're going to give you a reasonably accurate listing. Depends on if they expect a gringo to see it or if they really don't think one ever will, and they're interested in really getting Nicaraguans that are interested in there. So it can happen that you get real listing numbers on rentals. I don't know that I've ever seen them. The rentals I normally get are word of mouth, in which case they actually give me real numbers, but that's a little bit different situation. For a listing, they will be inflated, I would say, no matter what, by $100, possibly by a bit more, depending. But the tie to reality is nice that they're not going to be, with the rarest of exception, just wild, crazy numbers. You could glean something from it, most likely, versus a real estate listing where a house that's worth $20,000 could be listed for $300,000. Like that, I'm sure has happened, right? The percentage it can be off is so wild that you're just like, okay. Kevin Bravo, Canada. Hi, regards from Toronto. A Nicaraguan over here. How's it going in Toronto? I grew up just outside Toronto, so it's like my home city. Even though I'm from the U.S. side, I grew up just over the border in Buffalo, and Toronto was always. I used to march in the Santa Claus parade for 10 years. Luke is here. Hola, y'all. Luke, I'm going to read one of yours because I don't have to then respond. You're the next up on my screen. Apartment is $775. This is his 6 month ago response to real world prices in Nicaragua, electric bills, and Greek yogurt. Microwave and any appliance to include the fan and the betterment in the living room stay unplugged unless in use. Suicide shower. Allow water to run 2 to 3 minutes at low volume before turning on. Oh, I never do that. Heat, seconds is that most I do. Heat run no longer than 6 to 7 minutes. Fans on most hours I'm home. Nighttime often unneeded. Oh, and it's a 50-inch TV, used 6 to 8 hours per week. That's my electric use. I think that was in response to something where he said the amount. But there we go. Also in response to the same video, also 6 months ago, obviously, Mike Y6U3P says, the one thing I miss here is pretzels. As for my food, my diet is more traditional Nicaraguan dishes. When I visit the U.S., I cannot eat things I used to eat in the U.S. As for power, we pay an average of 4,000 Cordoba each month. Our home has AC and a few other American options. We also have 4 kids, so that accounts for a lot. As for food, we spend about 3,500 to 4,000 Cordobas each week. That includes personal items and carne meat for the week. There are 6 of us. We have a teenage son who lifts weights and eats twice as much as the rest of us. We rarely have leftovers in the U.S. We would spend a lot more. Our favorite store is Ahora Más, and we also use the local produce Mercado for veggies. We rarely eat out, and that does a lot. I'm just going to say I did this on live. Okay. This is cleaning up a lot of these old comments, which will help. All right, cool. Richard Johansson says, pretty sure I've seen a sign at the airport that says they don't accept anything larger than $20 bills. Most places will not take larger than 20. Banks will normally take 100. But yes, $20, assume if you have something bigger than a 20, good luck trying to use it. Not that you're not allowed to, but it will be potentially quite a challenge. So yes, that is true. Luke says, I pay rent and tutoring in USD cash, pay the electric bill and tips in Cordoba. I use a credit card whenever possible. John Blair says, hey Scott, what are your thoughts about people moving to smaller towns like Catarina or Didiomo, and their potential quality of life in those places? Thanks. Oh, well, I think, Those are difficult to call small towns because they're so part of a metro area that they're kind of not small towns. One of my best friends lived in Catarina for a while. Well, kind of still does. Now he's on the outskirts of it. He used to live downtown. Now he lives on the outskirts. And it's fantastic. I got another friend who recently moved out of Didiomo and loved it there. So these are Southern Messiah or Southwestern Granada, kind of Western Granada towns that he's talking about in the Pueblos Blancos or that kind of region. What's nice is you've got a series of small to medium-sized cities out there combined with a bunch of small villages that are close to each other. So they kind of create a metro area on their own. So I think those are actually fantastic. The biggest challenges are like it's difficult to find the really big grocery stores without more of a drive. You're going to want a car in most cases. Can you get around by public transportation? Yes, you can. But it's more difficult than, say, like living here in Leon where I can... well, we were talking about it today. My kids were talking about maybe opening up a cafe because my kids have espresso machine and they absolutely love being baristas and they're making huge volumes of stuff for us here at the offices. And I can go out and catch a bus for like 15 cents and go straight all the way to the main plaza in town, which is, I live outside the city. That's really far away, reasonably, to be able to do that on a bus. And the bus just takes me right there and will bring me right back home. I can do the whole thing twice for $1, right? Maybe 3 times. I'm sorry, back and forth and back again. For $1. Like, that's crazy. You can't do that down there, but they're a little bit more expensive. They're going to be a little bit more hassle, but you have these beautiful small towns. They're a lot more quiet than the city. They're cooler than the city from a temperature perspective. You have a lot of different variation from the different towns as to what you have. There's some nice restaurants nestled throughout that region. It's actually a wealthy region. So you're not talking about like destitute small towns. You're talking about like quite nice small towns. So this is where a lot of educated, a lot of wealthy, old family, good money Nicaraguans have a tendency to live. Those and many other towns around them. It's not in any way limited to those two. It's an area just sprinkled with cool villages, and so I think they're absolutely fantastic choices. And they're all very accessible to Managua. So if you would need to get to the airport or the big shopping or anything like that, you absolutely can. So that is an area that I really like, right? And everyone I know who moves out there absolutely loves it. Leo Trades 24. Hey, Scotty. Greetings from Naples, Florida. Love your videos. Thank you, Leo. I appreciate it. Richard Johansson also says those are smaller towns, but you are still in the main population corridor. It's not rural or anything. Exactly. He's echoing what I just said, or I'm echoing what he wrote first, really. It's actually an area. Southern Messiah is actually part of Messiah. Messiah actually has a higher population density than Managua. That throws people off. That area is so many small villages packed together that it's essentially its own city. Or part of a big area. Expazaz is here, gives a thumb, reminds everyone, hit thumbs up on the video. Thanks, it does help with the show. Luke says highest electric so far is $20. At the time that video was done, my highest was $85. Now we're pushing 1,000. So they jump around all over the place. We talk about that a lot, but we're very sad about that and trying our best to get that resolved. Expert says $100 bills are not recommended. Absolutely not recommended. They do exist in country. We do use them in certain circumstances where we're paying like major housing bills or major construction bills. That can happen if we're going to the bank and be like, we need $10,000. They're going to give us $100 bills, and we're going to be giving them to a construction company. Be like, here's $8,000 in cash, right? Yeah, $100 bills are okay in those circumstances because they're going to a bank, coming from a bank, going to a bank. In most of those cases, though, we'll just do bank-to-bank transfers. But if you need to use cash, that is a case where you could use them. But if you're doing normal transactions, right, this isn't the U.S., things aren't that expensive. It's very rare that it would be practical in any way to use $100 of cash. Keep in mind that the largest thing we can get here in country is the 1,000 Cordoba bill, which is under $30. It's like $28. And I can go a month without seeing 1,000 Cordoba bill. My wife does pay a lot of bills and does a lot of banking without me. She sees them probably weekly, but for me, hitting the ATM, doing normal stuff, right, the largest I see and I could go months, I guess, probably without seeing 1,000. The largest I see is a 500. That's the equivalent of $14. So in the U.S., you would see 50s and hundreds with some regularity if you're using cash. Here, you would see a $14 bill with great regularity and a 28 very rarely. So considering how big a 28 is here and how rare you see it, it explains why a 20 works okay, but a 20 is larger than a normal Nicaraguan will see in a year. Most Nicaraguans will not see larger than a 500, and most even going to the ATM are dealing with 200s, which is it'll be mapped to the US $5 bill, but it's really like a 6.5, something like that. Dan Kanki says, you skipped the question about your daughter's dating, so I guess you're a jealous father. Where was that question? Hold on. Scott ride a horse. Visiting backstory. Yo, Scott considered moving to San Juan del Sur. Regards from Toronto, Nicaraguan here. Hola, y'all. Pretty sure I've seen. I pay rent, tutoring. Hey, Scott. What are your thoughts about people moving? Hey, Scotty. Greetings from Naples. Those are smaller towns. Hola. What do you think of the impact to the Nicaraguan economy if and when the U.S. dollar experiences a devaluation? I mean, it will affect the economy, definitely, because we're tied to the dollar, but we do float freely. So if the dollar goes through an absolute collapse, the Cordoba can detach from it. So will it affect us? Yeah, absolutely it will affect us. But will it be absolutely devastating like it would to a Panama or an Ecuador who have no choice and are stuck on it? I mean, they could separate eventually, but they can't separate overnight. The Cordoba can quite literally separate from the dollar overnight, and it will be dragged down. There will be a back pressure, but that pressure is going to affect the region if the U.S. suddenly goes through an economic contraction, whether it's their economy actually imploding, which we expect, or the dollar devaluating, which we do not expect. There is nothing that indicates that will happen. As an economist, that is not likely on a great scale. You could a tiny bit, but it is relatively unlikely to see a large scale of that. Right? Very unlikely. It's not something that's in the cards. It's not something that's expected. It's not something we see coming. It's not something that the economic factors going on indicate. And the reason that people tend to think it's going to happen, it's because most people associate dollar value or currency value with economic strength. And those do not go together and often move opposite each other. So there's every possibility that the U.S. economic collapse, which we do absolutely expect, in fact, many of us believe has already happened, right? It's not a will happen. It is a long ago happened, like long ago meaning months, but not like hours and you haven't seen it yet. No, but the belief is that, and this is good economic theory. I've seen good economists state this, and I think that it tracks as a reasonable belief that if you look at the size of the AI bubble that's going on in the United States and the way that it is being intentionally exacerbated, which we are not used to seeing, that both, we believe, the government and economists have identified that the U.S. economy is actually gone and that they're using fake reserves of large corporations passing money back and forth to keep Wall Street with an appearance of a working economy so that it can keep limping forward with companies continuing to spend money that doesn't really exist at this time. And so that economy very possibly has already been gone, and the dollar is doing quite well. So clearly no connection between the two. And if you look historically during collapses and stuff, the dollar doesn't track with the collapse. The dollar could devaluate, but it doesn't devaluate in conjunction with an economic collapse generally. Or if it does, it's coincidentally in most cases. So we don't have a reason to expect an economic collapse, a currency collapse in conjunction with the economic collapse. And one of the things that drives economic collapse in many cases is the dollar being too strong. And so that's actually a major fear in the United States at this point. Many of the things that were done economically were based on the theory that they wanted to or needed to lower the value of the dollar. If the dollar was to collapse, it may prop up the United States economy longer, possibly quite a lot longer. And so there's many things being done to encourage a devaluation of the dollar, but they're failing, it seems, and the dollar is holding on, which may be exacerbating economic collapse in the United States. That doesn't mean that we don't have to be worried about it here, but because the Cordoba is a free-floating currency and because Nicaragua does not base their central bank on the dollar, our ability to ride out the change there is pretty good. Not perfect. No one in the region is going to survive an economy the size of the United States going down. That is like being on a rowboat near the Titanic sinking, right? Sure, your rowboat is detached from the Titanic, but the downward suction of the water could pull you under anyway. Thumbs up. Higher electric costs, 100 cents. So you skipped the question. Okay, so I confidently read through everything. There was no question about my daughters. So what is the question about my daughter's dating, as it wasn't up there? My dad's on here. Hey, Dad, how's it going? He's here just for a couple minutes. Exposé says, hello, Mr. Miller. As I always say, Mr. Miller is my father, and ta-da, there you go. Luke says, Exposé has limited options to use. I can pay my rent with hundreds. If you were making a vehicle purchase, sure. Yep, exactly. That's where we would see it. What happened to your electric meter? We don't have one. That's a huge issue here. There aren't enough electric meters, so there's tons of places that don't have them. None of my properties have electric meters, and we're in different jurisdictions. Right, and they just don't have meters. They're like, yep, sorry, we don't have any meters. So they just pick a really high number and charge us for it, and it's killing us. Luke says the ATMs are dual currency here. Good international debit cards like Charles Schwab have no fees themselves and refund the ATM fees at the end of the month. And that's us caught up there. Dad, how's it going? My dad is very jealous of the fact that I have 2 baristas living in my house now and an espresso machine. So we are actually getting up in the morning. My eldest daughter, the 17-year-old, stays up all night and absolutely is just over the moon with getting to be a barista. And my daughters did just say that they can hang out with me, so we're going to do that pretty soon. But my father is also very jealous of the fact that I get to hang out with my daughters so much. He wishes he was here and hanging out with them instead, or with me too. My kids are actually, my father will be interested in this, but hopefully the rest of you are too. We just finished Stranger Things, as many people have, and we were wondering what new thing was. Wait, hold on. The question is there. I asked it. That's fine if you don't want to answer. I'm telling you, there is no question. I read through everything on the stream. There is no question. So I can't answer a question I don't have access to. There are situations where if you put something into the question, like an email address or something like that, it's guaranteed it cannot be displayed to anyone. It's not me moderating it. It vanishes as it is posted. It will show it to you in some cases, but it will not show it to anyone else depending on what's in the question. And so it just because you see it on your screen doesn't mean we see it on ours. If you want to sign into YouTube with a different account, and I encourage everyone to do this, please sign into YouTube with a second account and watch the live stream twice. That would be amazing, and give 2 thumbs up. Please, everyone do that. But if you want to do that, you will definitely see, there's no question. If anyone else is on here and can take a moment, scroll through the things and see if you can find a question about my daughter's dating, because I read through everything twice and cannot find anything. And I'm just looking again, just to be sure, but there's nothing there. Yeah, and it shows me the people. There's only one screen of questions, so I don't have much to scroll back for. So we were looking for a secondary show because we've been working our way through Supernatural. Well, that's so long. You have to have another thing to watch while you're doing that. And they decided, I can't believe they decided on this. They chose The Expanse, and we are now starting The Expanse, and they like it. If those of you who haven't seen it, it's a very serious sci-fi, which my kids are 17 and 14, so it's not out of the question that they would get into a really serious show. But The Expanse is exceptionally serious as sci-fi goes, and they're like, we hate Star Wars, they hate Star Trek, they're not willing to give Stargate a try, at least not at this time. They're like, it's too goofy. So I'm like, well, The Expanse is definitely not goofy, nor is Foundation. Right, these are options that are not good, and they're like, yeah, we'll try The Expanse, and they're very excited because eventually we can do the Telltale video game of The Expanse that goes with it. So that's very cool. So we're working our way through The Expanse. I'm only up to season 3, watching it on my own. So it's very exciting. that I'm going back and watching it with them, so I'm picking up on all the things I missed the first time because I love the series. But I'm really looking forward to moving forward with it and getting to the end of the 6th season, and of course hanging out with my daughters. So we're doing that, and yes, Larry, we got the $500 Ninja at PriceSmart, and it is so far fantastic. Like, they love it. We're loving the coffee coming from it. We love that it was very affordable. And this is, we got it for them as a Reyes Mexica gift, kind of, and they've been wanting it for a while. We've been looking for it for a while, and they opened it and they're like, we actually got it, and we immediately like, we got to set it up. So we immediately set it up. We immediately ran out and bought a bunch of beans, and have been doing just all kinds of stuff. So we set it up on Sunday night and tried some things and ran coffee through it and late at night. And then we had a lot of stuff we had to do on Sunday night, so they didn't get to really work with it. And then yesterday morning, I'm sleeping with the pile of dogs, as I always do, and my 17-year-old comes in and is like, and my wife calls it her anime face, huge eyes, and she's all excited, and she's like, do you want espresso? And I'm like, okay, I'm getting up. And everyone else was already awake, and they had already gone through multiple rounds of making espresso for everyone. And my business partner, Paul, who lives here, is like, can I just, at 6 a.m., because my daughter's always awake at that time, he's like, can I just ask for you to make me a flat white? And she's like, yes, that'd be great. And so they're getting coffee early in the morning every day now. And like fancy stuff, like we're getting different types of beans. We're getting, oat milk and protein milk and all these different things to do it. And they're frothing and doing all the different stuff. Like, it's so much fun. And okay, Taya Kenki, there is no question below the San Juan del Sur. Everyone is verifying. Luke has said it's not there. Tony has said it is not there. Shane has said it is not there. Says, I don't see any dating relating question, haha, but comically, I'm super curious as to what it was. I can screenshot this if you want. In fact, I will. Hold on. I'm going to go and check another thing, because I've got 2 different places where there are questions. Don Tomatillo, Brian Watson, TJ Bailey. I have to find the San Juan del Sur one, too. Actually, I don't have to. Okay, I'm going to show you guys how it really works. Right? Let's pull back the curtain and show this, because people constantly think that we're taking comments down or just whatever, and it really doesn't work that way. So you're going to see me. Oh, that didn't work. You will see me in a second. That's me. Right, so you can see how much of a delay that is, right? And you can see how many people are watching right now. We got 29 people on. So when I'm saying I got 29 people, this is where it comes from. This is what my view of the live stream looks like, so that I can edit it. And that delay is probably like up to 10 minutes right now. Okay, so let's take a look. We got Brian Watson, Don Tomatillo, Brian Watson, TJ, Marvin. Have you considered San Juan del Sur? Here is how early it was. Below that is Kevin Bravo's questions, then Luke, then Richard, then Luke, then John Blair, Leo, Richard, Luke, Lydia, Expozaz, Luke, Expozaz, and here's where you say you skip the question. But you can see there's the San Juan del Sur, and there is no question here. It's just not there. And then there's my dad, blah, blah, blah. Limited. Now you can see Expozaz. I can see that he retracted messages because he retracted them. But if YouTube retracts it or refuses to post it, it does not show me. So you can see I have no indicator that there was ever a message after the San Juan del Sur one, right? But here you can see the others. The question is there. I asked it. That's fine if you don't want to answer. So you can see that you're posting. It's right down below the San Juan del Sur, but there's nothing else. So now you know for 100% sure it never posted. There's no question for me to answer. I am not avoiding a question. We're asking you to post it again. We have to assume you have a question to ask. You have to post it. Luke says, I knew you were going to say The Expanse. I love The Expanse. It's such a great show. But so this whole thing with the coffee is so fantastic. So my 17-year-old is like so excited. She's been wanting to do this for years. And so we finally got it. and is really getting into it. And then my younger daughter is also really into it, but she doesn't get up so early in the morning, or isn't still up so early in the morning. So she is doing afternoon coffee. So now we're doing all this espresso in the morning, and then mid-afternoon, my younger daughter comes in and is like, "What do you want for coffee?" And so she's making all these like iced drinks and stuff. And so we have multiple rounds of fancy coffee. It's fantastic, and I'm wired. We're all wired at this point. So John Blair says, going back to your comments on the U.S. economic conditions, in your opinion, what are the underlying reasons for a severe economic decline in the U.S.? Thanks. Expat says, what is the new Star Trek? I have not seen that, so I want to know, because I do love Star Trek. But I don't follow, like, media news very much. So the U.S. has a lot of things going on, right? So big things, obviously, tariffs, a lack of faith in the U.S. economy, just very little investment into itself. The U.S. is pushing for a very bad economic outcome, right? They want to they make huge investments in encouraging factories, for example. Well, factories make a country poor. If you're super poor and you need to keep people employed, factories are ways to employ people. But if you have a work pool that's capable of making higher income, factories make you poor. Right. And as you become more poor with more factories, you get poorer because the value of the factory starts declining. And so you can have one factory in a country full of engineers and full of doctors and full of researchers and all that. And that factory can make quite a bit of money because it's servicing all these high income positions, and they can have advantages from that. But if you have tons of factories, then your factories are making products for factory workers, and so your pool of people buying factory goods is lower, right? And so as you increase the number of factories as a ratio of a working population, things go down, right? So that's a weird thing that they're encouraging, but that's one of the things they're encouraging. But they've been long encouraging a lower educational base with lower income capabilities. And much of what the U.S. does is service itself, right? Which is normal. You have tons of doctors and lawyers and other people who are putting resources into taking care of other people. But it's very cyclical. And some of the things that we don't tend to see very much, but is very strong in the US, is that a massive percentage of the economy, and I mean a truly massive percentage, possibly 50 to 80%, is actually government-controlled welfare. So you have companies, let's use an example that I know 100%. Well, I have two examples that I will use for my own employment lifetime. I used to work for Burger King. Burger King, at least in New York, was used as a money laundering scheme for the United, and I talk about this a lot. We talked about it last night, where New York State's government wanted to have welfare for a large number of people who didn't qualify for welfare in a way that the public was accepting of. Like, they could go to work, they could do things, but they wanted to get welfare into their hands. So, bye, Dad, have a good night. They paid us to hire people who lost us money, and we made our money from the state. We didn't have to sell food. They didn't have to work. They didn't even have to work. They would just let them sit there. And we'd be like, why do we have these people? Let's fire them. They're worthless. They can't do the job. We can't let them work. They're so bad. And eventually they had to admit to the line managers that, well, we're paid for them to sit there. And that's where our income comes from, not from being a real business. Burger King, and we were the largest private franchise of Burger King. So I'm not saying Burger King corporate was doing this. Maybe they were. I don't know. All I know is that we were the world's largest franchisor of Burger King. We had hundreds of stores. And our business wasn't selling food. We were a front. Hundreds of fast food restaurants in a single chain. We can only presume all the chains are doing this, or many of the chains are doing this. And if they're not 100% getting it, they're stealing from the others, right? So we were a functional restaurant getting customers. So if you wanted to start a fast food restaurant, how could you compete with us? We were losing money. We could just give food away for free and put everyone else out of business. There's nothing you could do because we made our money from laundering, right? So we were a front for laundering for the state government. Well, I went to work and I immediately quit because it was unethical. As an American, I could not, in good consciousness, continue working. I went to work for Lockheed Martin and immediately found that the place was full of completely incompetent buffoons. And I talked to them, right? Because I worked in engineering. And it's like, well, clearly none of you are qualified to do this job. What is going on here? And one of them, because there was like like helicopter engineering was like what they were supposed to be, like designing military equipment, and it was like a retired English teacher who like couldn't make it at the high school, had this position, and they're like, oh yeah, so the government requires that you have a degree, any degree, because they're propping up the university system. So it's welfare for the university system. And as long as you were a body, they could put you in the seat. And Lockheed Martin got paid for every college graduate they employed and hid from the unemployment rolls. And so the federal government was, and it's more complex than this because they're using it to manipulate a whole bunch of things with public funds. But at the end of the day, it was a welfare scheme that the public wasn't okay with. And so the government wanted people that they could buy their vote, presumably. So they used this massive welfare scheme to do this. Well, when you start doing that with 5% of your economy, you assume it's going to have an impact. When you do it for 80% of your economy, everything starts to fall apart. And you say, how could that be 80% of the economy? That makes no sense. But one, Scott Adams, economist for the CIA, said 98% is the number, right? From the CIA, it was said flat out 98% is the estimated number of jobs that have no function. That's probably overstating it, but why would he overstate it? He doesn't need to. The numbers are crazy. The second thing is that, but that gives you hope. You only need 2% to make all the money. The economist for the government said 2% of the people can make all of the money the U.S. makes, or in any economy, really. But then they said, okay, so you do know you can't say I'm avoiding the question. You are avoiding posting the question. We proved that. Everyone has proven it. Every person has said you didn't post the question. We showed you didn't post the question. So it is 100% clear that you are avoiding posting the question. So the question is, why are you avoiding posting the question? I want to know, and I demand an answer right now. You cannot make a statement like you made. All of these statements are lies. You claimed you posted a thing. We showed you that you did not post it. So do not continue lying. We have strict rules in this community about lying, and I do not take flat lying well. I had a talk with someone about this earlier. The other day, someone lied to me just straight to my face, and he's like, I think you need to talk to them about this. I'm like, why would I talk to a liar? Like, if that's how little they respect me and the community, then what's the point in doing anything? So you have now proven to be dishonest and working with malicious intent. So the question is, how are you going to respond? Because you're being offensive and dishonest. And I assume you're an American posing to try to get people upset. But we're not going to pretend that you posted something. Everyone here knows you didn't, and it's shown on the video that you didn't. Everyone can see in real time, because this is a live. There's no way to stage it. You did not repeat the question, right? Has anyone seen a question repeated? Is it anywhere on the show, right? Let's do it again. Here we go. Let's go back and look at the lies. Going back to your comments, there's John Blair. Hello. Hey, Scott. Hope all is well. Phone numbers, emails. Luke pointed out, this is a common trick. I want to see this. This is something that people trying to pretend they've posted something do regularly. And I know that Paul Damon, who is now passed, did this regularly so he could accuse people of things. He knowingly put email addresses or links into post and then said, you're deleting my post. But he knew, because he's a YouTuber, that if he did that, YouTube would immediately discard the question and never post it. So there are things you can post either because they are offensive, because they're illegal, or because they are forbidden, things like email addresses and phone numbers. So you can pretend you posted something and you know it'll never show up. So you can safely do that and just say, well, I did it, right? Now, you can easily have just not posted anything. But, so here we are again. He tells you it won't populate. Expat says, Star Trek is coming out soon. Luke retracted something. Not spam, just saying Star Trek Starfleet Academy is set to debut. First, that sounds awesome. My dad says, so glad he made it. Expat says, good night. Luke says, the public-private ventures at state workforce offices are what you're referencing. Career Source Florida, I testified against as an employer for embezzlement of veteran services, funding from the Fed. That makes sense. And then here you are, without having posted anything, what it's implied to me, and you just lie through your teeth. And then Shane says, love the live, Scott. Have a great night, everyone. And says, takes care. And you said, I just repeated the question, which obviously you did not repeat the question, right? So stop saying you repeated the question and explain why you're lying to us. We've shown it twice. So you knew it wasn't there the first time. So you know we're not avoiding it. Pretending that you think we're avoiding it is pretty offensive, honestly. So being attacked in the community for that behavior is just ridiculous. So okay. They are removed. They've been reported to YouTube for harassment. They never posted the question nor explained why they were being offensive. And we're not going to put up with that kind of stuff. No bullying on this channel. Absolutely not. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. And you get to see it live, right? It is so rare that we have to do this. Yeah, crickets. I mean, now there's crickets because they're not able to post anymore. But that was insane. Like, it's a live stream. Like, we can show that this is not happening. Larry says, my buddy is pitching now in 9th. Leon losing 17-8, bottom of the 9th. Yeah, I got a friend at the game, and he's reporting because he works for Bohr. And he's like, yeah, they started off weak, and now they're doing really well. Drama, right? Like, come on. You know, it gets my ire because this is the second time this week that's happened. Now, this time was on a live stream, which is hilarious because did they think I couldn't show the chat and that the rest of you can't see the chat? And what's crazy is this is recorded, so they can go back in the past. So people who are watching the live stream in the future can go through themselves in the chat and be like, it's definitely not there. So that's crazy. Like, what? Yeah. So we can assume it was AI, but it didn't act like AI to me. I think that was a plant. Now, that's a person who's been here for a while. They've posted many times, and it's generally, I thought, you know, so it is true. I do get a number of people whose names look like other people's names, and no offense to my awesome audience, but sometimes I confuse you because I don't meet you in person, and I see your names come across, and for example, we'll just pick on the person who just posted, Alan Howe, Icken Decentraland. Right? You can imagine how easy it would be to make a long name that starts with Alan H something and ends in land, and I would not probably remember which person was which because the name is long and I have to read it flying by. I can't even focus, right? I'm old. I can't quite read that. I could have some of the letters wrong. And it's really easy to not be able to keep people straight, especially when they have overlapping names and I haven't met you in person. So like Luke is safe because I've met him in person, so I definitely remember who Luke is. And Larry, I know Larry, we're neighbors, but but like Luke Sampson up above, right? It's not that I don't want to remember who you are, but for a long time you're just a name that scrolls by, and other names look like your name. So is this a person who has posted before or not? This one is so obvious, Taya Kanki, that you're like, okay, that seems like I'd remember that name. And I remember reading it many times on a live stream. But I don't remember there being like offensive or like triggering stuff. But I am aware that some people try to trigger me and I just miss it. So it's possible that they've been slightly upping the level of stuff and are finally like, I just have to lie about something. He's not going to take any bait. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. Or it could be someone that just has a name similar to one I've seen before, and they were hoping I was going to let it slide because I confused them with someone. There's a lot of like maybe stuff there. I don't know. And speaking of Luke Sampson, hopefully the Luke Sampson who just posted is the one I just mentioned, or else it also proves my point that I can't tell them apart because they're just a green L on my screen. Hey, Luke, how's it going? First, I'm going to answer Alan Howick in Decentraland. Posted, hi Scott, are you allowed to do metal detecting on the beaches? I've been asked this before. To the best of my knowledge, it's completely allowed. I cannot imagine it not being allowed. That is my, without having a lawyer who's like, hey, can you do this? No one does this, right? But there's a ton of things that people don't do here. You're completely allowed to do. It's just things that people don't do. Nobody model railroads here, and that makes me sad because I love model railroading. Nobody does it. I don't think anyone knows what it is. But are you allowed to? Of course you're allowed to model railroad, right? I don't think there's a country on earth. North Korea allows you to model railroad, right? So you're allowed to do that. Metal detecting, I'm pretty sure falls into that category of, yeah, you can just do that, but no one here has ever thought of doing it, right? Would anyone object to the activity? I don't think so. I think that would be really weird. The beaches are public, so you're going to find a lot of bottle caps. That's what you're going to find. Could I bring a metal detector into the country? I believe so. They're not on any restricted list that I've seen, so seems likely it would be fine. Luke Sampson says, moving there soon. Recommended Pacific beach town. I can live beachfront and fly in and out with my amphibious boat plane. Looking to be semi-secluded, but not far from civilization and standard amenities. That's going to be really hard. The reason being, and I'm not an expert on boat planes, so maybe I'm just stupid. But the Pacific waterfront is rough water. I mean, we're talking rough water. So, and I think you said Pacific front, right? Yeah, Pacific Beach Town. All of them are rocks and waves. That's what I think is going to cause problems, right? As far as, are you allowed to fly in? I would assume so. But is there a place that you can dock? No, pretty much not. Like, you need like a marina or something. Like, I don't quite know how it would work. Like I said, not an expert on boat planes, or amphibious. Yeah, amphibious boat plane is what he said. So I think you're going to have like physical logistics problems, but let's ignore that and imagine that you can just land anywhere and you know more about this than I do. So, I mean, it's not a stretch. You know more about this than I do. You knew to put the words on the screen, so you know more than I do. Semi-secluded, not far from civilization. Anything from kind of Corinto, and that's probably actually your best bet. It's just outside Corinto. But from Corinto down to Huehuete, that's going to work out pretty well, I think, you can get to civilization without too much of an effort. It's low-cost areas. Most of those areas, there are a few exceptions, are pretty secluded. So you've got a lot of spots where like, okay, you could put in and figure something out and maybe be out of the way. And maybe a little bit more secluded, somewhere in the Salinas Grandes or Playa Tesoro areas, might have a place with estuary where maybe you could get the boat out of harm's way of the ocean by getting into the estuary and then pull it up where the fishing boats are. So those options do potentially exist. They're few and far between. You're going to need estuary land to put, or something like that, to put the plane. Otherwise, you're going to be in harsh Pacific. It is a nasty ocean. Like, it is really hard. And there's so many rocks. For example, the name of the beach that I live on is The Rocks. So, I think you've got a lot of, semi-secluded, not far from civilization. Everything is decently far from civilization, right? The Leon beaches are the closest at 15 minutes to the city if you're like in a car. But the others are like under an hour for most of them. So like the Didiamba beaches, the Carazo beaches, the Managua beaches, they're not incredibly isolated in most cases. And then like Salinas Grandes or Transito, they're in southern Leon. They're a little bit more remote just because but you're in between Leon and Managua. So even though you're a little bit farther from a single center of population, you're closer to multiple and have choices. So it kind of evens out. Expazaz says, should I start a hobby channel to stay in touch with my family and friends when I am down there? Honestly, that's what I did, right? It was a lot of fun. This was my dad, who's often on the live stream. This was so I could get into contact with my dad so that I could share what I was doing. But also, I have some friends from high school and some other people. It was really interesting. And they're like, we want to see where you are. We want to be, and so it allowed me to like have a reason and a structure to filming my life and showing stuff to several people, and it just kind of grew organically, and it was really easy to do. And so if you have like a GoPro or something, or just a decent phone, right? I've got an iPhone, like you could totally do it with this, that can be enough for you to be like, check out this cool house I found. Look at this food I'm eating. Look at this thing, right? You could do it all in shorts. If if I was doing it today and starting over, I might just do a shorts channel, because that's how people tend to watch, right? Back when I started, no one did that. Well, they did, but not that many. It hadn't really taken over like that yet. So that could easily be a great way to stay in contact with people, and it gives you this outreach for the people you don't know to maybe find out stuff, because your experience here will be different than mine as well. Richard Johansson says your metal detector will go absolutely crazy on some of the beaches here, mostly trash. Yes, like I said, bottle caps and other garbage. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot. I can't imagine what. So I don't know. It may be the worst place for metal detecting because of that. It may be the best because no one does it, and you may be like, oh my gosh, the things I'm finding are crazy. Alan says, thanks for answering. Well, thanks for asking. Hopefully it was somehow useful. Luke says, just don't touch any gold found. I was going to mention that. Yeah, don't touch the gold. Luke Sampson says, hey, not sure about all that mess. I'm new to your live stream, but have been following you for almost a year. No drama here. Thanks, Luke. Alan says, haha. The other Luke says, you're now other Luke. Best chance for a seaplane to port on the lakes versus ocean. Yeah. If you don't want to be in the Pacific, you've got lakes that it definitely could work. And the Caribbean side is probably pretty decent. But do you want to be there, right? I would want to be on the Pacific. That's why I am on the Pacific, right? So I can see why you'd want Pacific, but it comes with challenges. Richard says, there's one hotel or maybe resort outside of Chinandega. You're talking about Puesta del... Its name is Marina Puesta del Sol. Chinandega has a small boat marina that maybe a float plane could dock at. Potentially. Are they still in business? Because I keep looking at... Oh, Richard says Marina Puesta del Sol as well. I've actually spent the night there, $450 a night, 11 years ago. There. It was very nice, but people keep saying it's out of business, and then someone's like, no, it's open. And then you look at their website and it's out of business. I never drive up there to check. I think it's open, but I'm not confident. I'm going to give it a 5 on my confidence level of being open. Free coach Ron Williams is here. Hey there, Scott. Always good to see you. Thanks, Ron. So you just missed the drama of someone pretending that they asked a question so they could accuse us of not answering it, and then what it means that we didn't answer a question that didn't exist. That was fun. If you didn't see that part, go back and watch the live stream again, because what the heck? It's the Venezuela thing, right? People are just emboldened to be crazy now. I don't know. Are we coming up on 2 hours? We're not quite at 2 hours, but we're getting there. Oh, by the way, for those of you who are on, 1, give us a thumbs up, like get it going. Luke says makes sense. Thanks for the input, guys. You're welcome. Oh, Derek Clark is here. Thank you. Good channel. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate that. So for all of you who are saying, oh yes, Ron, you didn't see it. It was good. I think it was good. I got angry. Like, I don't normally get angry. That's not true. I get angry, just not on camera normally. That's not true either. I get angry with like nations on the channel. I don't get angry with people so much, but that one, I really, being autistic, people who just lie to your face, it's a trigger. But it was also because I had this long discussion on Sunday about someone who had lied to us. And it was just this most disrespectful thing. And it's someone I know in person that was just like completely flat out lied, and then got their spouse to lie for them. And then when they got caught and couldn't possibly cover the lie in any way, their response was, well, what value is there to truth? As if like respecting humans has no value in it. I'm like, what? And I was talking to other people about it, and they're all like, yeah, these are just terrible people. That's just the vibe. And I'm like, that's just so sad. But it drives me crazy. But give a thumbs up on the show. That's what I was saying. And then we just lost a bunch of people because we were saying no, it fluctuates. I discovered, first of all, I can't believe I've never gone. I went to the La Colonia in Santo Domingo. Oh my gosh, that is a great grocery store. It is 4 of our grocery store, of our La Colonias here in one building. It is enormous. It was great. And they had all these extra things, like they had a Casa del Cafe in there. They had La Gourmeteria, right? The gourmet shop. And we got some food from there. It's fantastic. It was also unbelievably expensive. It was expensive for the U.S. expensive. But the quality of the food was amazing. It was so good. So I'll be going back and wasting outrageous amounts of money with them again in the future. But I really, really liked that La Colonia. And I like that plaza. I like Santo Domingo in general, which there's a mall. So like I feel dirty liking an area with a mall, but it's actually really nice. I'm just from that generation that malls it's not okay to like the mall. By the way, my childhood mall just closed. It was built right as I was being born. I grew up. That is the shopping we did everywhere. And Luke, I did not find stroopwafels. And everyone in my family wants them. It's terrible. What I did find, and I question telling people because I'm worried you will buy them all. But La Colonia bakes the best biscotti I've ever had. And it sounds ridiculous. It's not almond biscotti like you would think. It's papaya biscotti. My wife loathes papaya to the point where, like, she can't have it on her plate. She hates papaya so much. She loves this biscotti so much she stole all of it and ate all my biscotti. But it's made at La Colonia, I just discovered, so go check that out. It is amazing. So the whole thing, like La Colonia was great. This gourmeteria was fantastic. There was a new cafe I wanted to try, but they were closed. So I'm going to be going back there and filming some of that. But that was cool. But no stroopwafels. That makes me sad. Larry says, French guy in Dominica had a metal detector. He did very well in tour speeches, charged $100 to look for lost wedding rings. That's a business idea. Patricia says, I wonder what the import rules and taxes are on a seaplane. I need to go back and see the drama. Yeah, the drama. Ron says, I can also be mad. Alan says, cool business idea. Richard Johansson, I only ever seen crop duster planes north of Grenada. I live right by the airport. We just have one crop duster. That's all there is. I don't think there's many privately owned planes in the country. There's definitely not, but there are privately owned planes. There just are very few. But to be fair, there's very few commercial planes in the country too. There's just very few planes. So I think it'd be fine. You also have the option of not using a seaplane and flying to someplace like Leon. There's plenty of airports. And our airport's open here. And now they just put in a new highway to it. So, like, it's really nice. You could fly into Leon and just be 12 minutes from the beach, 15 minutes from the beach. So that's an option, right? I don't know if your plane can land on tarmac. I assume it can. Ron says, I do not like injustices. I agree with you. That, I say this a lot. I'm autistic. That is one of those things, right? That whole, like, setting up and pretending. Like, if you just want to yell at me, just yell at me, right? That's one thing. But then being like this, like, I'm trying to make people think that you're doing a thing that I obviously lied about and I can prove it. And this is for those who weren't here, Patricia and Ron, we just put the camera on the chat and showed that they were lying because they kept saying that they posted stuff that I wasn't answering. And everyone's like, it's not there. So it was a weird gamble to take, I think. Luke says, still buying them at La Colonia and Matagalpa regularly. Bemby says, back online in central Canada. Tech phone issues, but move phone SIM to LTE tablet. Researching mobile hotspot options before next trip to Nicaragua. You know what I do? I don't know if this helps. With my Claro on here, I get like unlimited hotspot from this. I mean, you pay by the gig already, but you can use it however you want on that. I don't know if that helps, but that's what I do. Luke says, Injustice response, want to role play, roll the dice. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I hate eliminating people from the channel, but I've also gotten to that point in life where, and this is what I was saying to my friend when I was talking about the people lying to me. He's like, you got to do all this stuff. Like, I think you should reach out and you should have a, I'm like, why would I reach out? I'm like, if someone's going to treat someone like that, just don't respond. Like, just cut them out of your life, right? And I've had multiple people this week. Obviously, this has been a dramatic week in general with the stuff going on in the region, and people have this question. I've talked to multiple people about this week. Like, what do you do when, like, family and friends just turn on you and gets... Patricia, we totally told them that. Multiple times we said, you're either just flat out lying. We didn't say that until later. We're like, we're sure you posted. Where did you post? I read everything and showed it wasn't there. I showed it wasn't there. Everyone on the channel said, we checked, it's not there. And we said, here's all the kinds of things that you could post that would make it instantly disappear, and it'll show for you and we'll never see it. And they just ignored that and kept saying we were lying. So I put the camera on the thing and showed, I read through the entire live stream and showed that it never existed. And everyone on the live stream can see it. So no, and then they kept lying about it. They said, I posted it again, and you know what it tells me that you're not. You can scroll up and see what they said. No, I think they're gone now. You should be able to replay it and see it. Does it keep the stuff that they put? Because I removed them from the channel, so on mine, it's still there. Can you guys still see what they're saying? Because here, I'll put, just in case, because this then goes on record, right? So here's the video. Here's what they said at the end. This is where it really got it. This is after they lied twice about posting it, and after they had been shown beyond a shadow of a doubt that they had not posted it. So no matter what they did, they knew they had not posted it. So if they were to continue pretending they had posted it, that was a lie. Based on that lie, Taya Kanki 6654 said, "What it's implied to me by avoiding my question is that you rather not have your daughters dating a Nicaraguan, but you like us so much, right?" So this was, no question, a setup, because they couldn't risk me answering the question, right? Because of course my daughters can date Nicaraguans if they went to, like, that. What are you talking about? That makes no sense. Of course they can. I live in Nicaragua. So this was obviously a setup. This is someone who is definitely trying to create a problem, which is weird because they've been a viewer for a long time, or months, I would say. And, oh, Patricia says, YouTube deleted many of my comments mentioning your public urination, but not this one. That one made it. Larry says, I've had messages disappear on your show sometimes when I send on my phone to you. Yes, they definitely do. There's no question that they disappear for lots of reasons. Some because they get banned, some because they just don't work. But in this one, the claim was that they were on the thing. They're like, I can see them. And we're like, no, you can't. Maybe it was shadow banned. No, it's, oh, Patricia's might be shadow banned. So the actual thing is there isn't actual shadow banning. That's not actually a thing. That's a very hard to disprove myth, but if you work on both sides, it doesn't actually happen. There is a number of mechanisms. There's ones where it just gets absolutely banned, and that's not a shadow ban. Like you post something seriously nasty, I will never get notified of it. There's nothing. If you post something that's questionable, or if you're Brent saying, I'd like to have breakfast, you get put into moderation, and that's just where it gets held. I have no idea why, and Brent is 100%. Every single post that Brent has ever had goes into moderation. And we've talked about it, and we have no idea why, but it's 100%. And he's never had something that should be in moderation ever, right? And sometimes it's posted as simple as like, okay, or good show, right? The simplest things. There's definitely not a triggering word going on. And just so you know, right now, there is 0 things in moderation. Nothing. I know that the rule of life is all things in moderation. But right now we have nothing in moderation. Everything in moderation is either banned because the person was banned, or which are never like community members. They're like, if that happens, there's always a discussion somewhere. We talk about every person who gets knocked out. This is the one time we've ever had it happen on a live, so we talked about it live, which I think was really valuable. But if YouTube deems it unacceptable, so I guess there's 3 levels. If you put in an email, something like that, I don't think YouTube ever gets it. I think your browser cuts it off. And as a software developer, I know kind of how that works, right? So there's like these really simple, that's an email address, so we're never going to send it, so YouTube servers don't have to deal with it. If you put in something nasty, like you make really, really aggressive, like threatening things or something like that, then it'll go to YouTube, and YouTube will get it right away, and they're like, oh, hell no. And there's just this place that it goes, and I don't get notified of that. I am notified that it exists. You know, there's a place where comments go to die. That's the notification I get. I don't get notified that something went to it. I get notified that there's a place where things you shouldn't see are. These are things that YouTube has deemed so offensive that you as a YouTuber should never have to see them to make a judgment call on them. So that exists. Not very much goes there, obviously. Although with the channel topic that I have in the popularity now, I think a fair amount does actually go there. Certainly I don't want to look there. Then there's the moderation. And I get some really nasty stuff in moderation and some threats in moderation. Those I see. And I try to go through them daily, but realistically sometimes it's a week. And sometimes I don't know how to, I'm trying to evaluate something so it goes a little bit longer. But I don't put them there. YouTube does. I have to release them. And I do constantly. Unless someone accuses me of deleting their comment, then right? We have a very strict, right? I said this on a couple of videos and I posted it somewhere in the rules. If you lie about my moderation, it's an instant ban. I'm only banning people who lie about being banned, but that is an auto ban. And that is basically the same thing that this person did. They lied to say that we were ignoring the question because they were trying to, right? They're trying to make it, other people on the channel think that we're ignoring it. And a lot of people post, you're banning my questions. Well, I can't prove that I'm not banning your questions. That's an impossible thing to prove. But I know I don't go around doing that. And I often know that I'm accused of it when I've not been online for a long time. So I'll go a day or two without being online, which does happen. And people will accuse me of doing all these things while I was off. Like, obviously I didn't do that, right? This is not a gray area where like maybe I forgot. This is not like, oh my gosh, I did this thing that I never do, but this one time I did it and I didn't, like, no. I know I don't do that, and I know I didn't do that. I know there was no opportunity for me to do that. And YouTube has all these mechanisms, like I would have to go through a lot to do that. Like, that's not a thing. And they'll just accuse me of deleting stuff. It's a tactic. It's a bot tactic. So it's good for everyone to be aware that that exists as a discreditation tactic. The only tool at your disposal is to nuke that person. But the handy thing is, if someone makes that accusation, like this person did today, there's no gray area, right? There's not like, oh, maybe there's a mistake. This is they flat out falsified something to attack you. There's nothing to work out. There's no, maybe they'll come around. There's no misunderstanding, right? It's not like that. So it's nice that we have that degree of, this is just obvious troll. So it is what it is. Are you talking about La Colonia in Plaza Once? No, I'm talking about the one actually in the Santo Domingo Plaza. It's hard to find, but it's actually in the Gallerias. Like, it's in it, but not inside. It's just in the parking lot. Luke says, still visible. I'm not sure what's still visible. Larry says, I've had message. Oh, no, we said that. Patricia says, YouTube delete. Oh, no, I'm repeating. Shadow banned. Did Brent piss off a YouTube algorithm god? He has to have. We've talked about it. We're like, we have no idea what that is. Luke says, good to know. Oh, still visible is what I did. Luke says, an autoban on communication or an autoban to the timeout box? Oh, no, if someone's doing like that, I'm not doing timeout. Like, there is no, I don't ever want to see that person posting again, because that's malicious, right? So once we have malicious like that's some, like, if you really look at like what they were building up to, they lied multiple times and then got vicious, right? So they were clearly setting this up. We're not playing a timeout with people who are doing setups, right? People who just, like, if we get into an argument, like, I've never put someone in timeout, first of all, but if that is where that would come into play, is like, okay, this is a heated thing, I got to put someone in timeout so they can cool down. That's different. Someone who came on the channel for the purpose of malicious intent, no, you don't want to put them in timeout, because I need to protect you guys from that as well, and all the people who are not posting but are reading the comments or whatever. So I didn't do a hide, right? I did a report to YouTube for having their account pulled, right? So this will go to YouTube, and they will get them and check the reports and see what they did, and they can have their. I mean, they're not going to delete their account because of this, but they may be doing this on many channels, and if they get lots of reports, they have something to correlate that. And my channel, for example, I know if I report you on my channel, YouTube has track record, right? Thousands of videos, only a few reports. I only report when it's legit, and it's really easy for them to do a playback or have an AI run through and go, this was harassment, no reason for that account to exist, or report it to authorities if it's in the US. They can do so. So that they have a report for the authorities in the US. Luke says, good to know, and yes, it also has retractable wheels on the floats. Landing on water or land is possible. Beach landing is good, also, given there's 800 feet or more of land to take off looking for it. I don't think you're going to find a beach that'll work. Like, it'll just be rocky. Like, it'll be bad in most beaches, and all the beaches have people, right? So that would probably not work. Maybe you could find something. You could, like, there's airports you could land at. Esmeralda might be able to take you, but that is said it's closed. and but Leon has one. Chinandega has one. There might be one up at like Potosí or something like that. You've got options. So definitely, you know, I don't know who's going to be able to dig into those options with you, but those options exist. We are at the 2-hour mark now. I do need to go watch a show with my kids. So, luckily my channel is like 120 folks, and the only nasties were only directed at me. Mostly the nasties are directed at me, but some of them are like proxy directed at me. So it's like, oh, you're so terrible. But then they go into this thing that would apply to a lot of people. And so like that can be bad. Yeah, so, you know, I mean, the reality is the amount of nasty I get is really low. Partially because, you know, I've talked to a lot of YouTubers about it, and it's like, we've learned, people who do it a bit learn that rapid moderation, once you identify someone as a troll, once you identify someone as aggressive or dishonest, there's no value being lost by getting rid of that person. In fact, there's only value at risk by keeping that person. They can, you know, they can create a nasty situation. They can attack other people. They can make it an unpleasant place to be. And so, it is actually a really important thing to not be dragged into the fight. And you have to a little bit, right? But not be dragged in, not let it become the thing, and just let them go. And it's really easy. And this is the thing that they play on. It's easy for a YouTuber or anyone in the spotlight in some way to have this like, no, I can't risk followers. I can't, you know, it's my income. Well, this isn't my income. And I didn't do the show to be a show. I did it to communicate with my dad, like we talked about. And with Expat was thinking like something like that. This was, you know, okay, so only my dad watches, right? It doesn't make me any money. It loses me money in reality. And just a tiny bit, right? And I really appreciate when you guys help offset that. Like, it really, really does make a big difference. And, you know, I do this because I think it's valuable and I enjoy it, and my audience is fantastic. And Luke will tell you, right, he's not making any money on doing his YouTube show, but it's a lot of work, right, putting it together and stuff. But we do it because we love it, or we think that it has value for people, and I hope it does. But I get to meet lots of great people in real life from it, and digitally and so forth. But so because of that foundation, I'm in a really good position to be like, I don't care. Like, it's like, so someone I don't know, who honestly I don't want to be around, right, is angry at me. And I got, you know, obviously this week I got quite a few nasty comments this week for speaking out, and or just not caving, really, is what a lot of it is. And it's these people who are like, I sure hope I don't run into someone like you when I'm in Nicaragua. And I'm like, you're not coming to Nicaragua. First of all, this comment you're making is guaranteeing you're not coming to Nicaragua. But two, that you would make this comment definitely is not coming to Nicaragua. Like you think we're falling for that? The things that people say. The username Teya Kanki in English means you can do it. You are correct. It does. Teya Kanki. Interesting. All right, guys, we're over 2 hours. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We did get 324 views, which is completely awesome for a Tuesday night impromptu show. I am going to watch some of The Expanse with my daughters, 2 episodes tonight. Don't forget to do your Duolingo, practice your Spanish, cheer for the Leon team, even though we are losing, and I'm sure it is over and we lost. I'm going to maybe enjoy some coffee. And we will not do a live stream tomorrow, but we do have the long one on Thursday. Don't use the excuse of that you watch tonight to get you out of being on Thursday. You are all still obligated to join on Thursday. Hit that thumbs up, share on social media, do all those things. Go back and watch this so you can see the drama unfold. It really wasn't much. I've described it 10 times longer than it actually was. It was pretty fast, but you can see me get a little bit angry and nuke him. So if you're ever wondering what it looks like, there it is in real time. But it is interesting that you can see me. I think it's funny that I bring up the video and you're like, like, what are you